Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Here we are then, the final phase of Classic and the final phase to review. Not going to have to do another one of these for, a good few months until we're well into TBC now. I think expectation-wise going into the last phase, it was always going to be about Naxxramas. That was like the pillar so many people put their goals upon for World of Warcraft Classic. And, well, we'll get into it, but I think it certainly delivered more so than any other raid so far has. Because sure, there was the Scourge Invasion, there was the World PvP stuff, but it all just felt like it was a big build-up to Tier 3. And overall, there just wasn't really that much stuff left to polish off for Classic in terms of content. Other phases tended to have maybe 2 or 3 different areas you could really focus on. With Phase 6, the Scourge Invasion's more limited time. The rewards from the Argent Dawn vendors are not that great if you've been raiding in any capacity, and the World PvP, well, we sort of know how World PvP goes at this point, and it wasn't exactly killed off by flying, let me put it like that. You know what the funny thing is though, is just how similarly players have reacted to the notable difficulty spike that came with Naxxramas. So I think a lot of people, myself included, admittedly, thought it wasn't really gonna be that much of a challenge. I mean, AQ was meant to be quite the difficulty jump from Blackwing Lair. Sure, some guilds saw some progression on it, but for the most part, there wasn't really many issues till Twin Emps, or the optional bosses being Viscidus and Oro. With Naxxramas, however, it's been quite the different story. With just the other week, I looked at the clears that people had done by the end of the second reset, and it was only about 20% of guilds which had managed to achieve a full clear at that point in time, which is considerably down on any raid we have seen so far. We actually went into it with somewhat of a similar scenario as people would have back in the day. Back then, people knew TBC was going to be a thing. People struggled to keep a healthy raid roster going. They felt the pressure of the actual consumable costs that Naxxramas demanded for progression or for certain encounters, and guilds starting to realise who's been putting in the work raid to raid and who's really just been there along for the ride, and it's really pushing guilds apart or just causing mergers at the moment. Imagine the attrition we see now with guilds on top of much more limited resources online, less knowledgeable players, no private server scene. It's not too hard to imagine the reasons just why so few people saw the end, or just the inside of Naxxramas for that matter, back in the day. But before we go on to Naxxramas though, there are the other bits which we should cover first, as I think they're a bit of a sidetrack to the main event. There are the new World PvP objectives which are now in the game because, well, kind of like just back in the day, and this is why I've heard they put them in, World PvP was becoming quite a bit less active by the later stages of the game, and even the raiding gear from Naxxramas or some items from AQ had now overtaken the power of the PvP gear, which I also believe was buffed around patch 1.11 or 12 as well, which is one of the things that made it incredibly powerful early on when it was released in Phase 2 with such a late game itemization. It feels like the new World PvP content has been largely glossed over or just taken advantage of for the temporary buffs like the extra damage in East or Western Plague Lands from the towers, or the new world buff from Silithus. Yes, there is actually a new world buff out which is 5% damage for 30 minutes when you turn in a Trace of Silithus. There's not been too much interaction with it outside of the first week or so. How about the Scourge Invasion? I mean, it's okay, I guess. I'm just more glad than anything Blizzard did decide to extend the thing and acknowledge that we have a much larger player base, and this was a thing that had to happen so that people would actually be able to see it and benefit from the content. But it boils down to go somewhere, kill some zombies and some skeletons, go somewhere else, kill some more, repeat. Well, I mean, it's an MMO, I guess. Grind is part of the deal, isn't it? Not too much to talk about other than the fact that initially we now know for certain that it was 150 battles, then the event would end. What's happened in reality is Blizzard said we're going to double the maximum number of battles to 300 and then add a week on afterwards, and the latest date it can extend to is the 31st of December. What's actually happened is it's just ending on the 31st of December by the looks of it, from what we've seen at the moment. This is being recorded before that date, so if it's still going then, I've no idea. I mean, some servers didn't have the AQ War Effort autocomplete starting for weeks and weeks after they should have, so who knows, maybe another glitch in the Matrix, but if it's still going on, it's not exactly a bad thing for anybody really. If you were super keen, you could still be farming stones for certain bosses in TBC, such as the early bosses and trash waves inside Mount Hyjal. Oh, and remember, of course, if you're Alliance and we're going to be getting shamans in TBC, Wind Fury and weapon stones don't stack, so don't worry about farming an insane amount because you'll just be using it on your offhand. But aside from the world PvP stuff, aside from the Scourge invasion and all the new Argent Dawn rep stuff, which is, you know, fine enough, Naxxramas is the real talking point, the last raid of our classic journey, and the only one to have really delivered, in my opinion. It's got progression, it's not a trash simulator like AQ40 is, there is loads of amazing loot, tier 3 is great, if not just for looks, then for function, as long as you like healing or tanking, I guess, if you're playing certain classes. And the raid feels much more like a actual boss rush than other raids have previously. It's just so packed with encounters, 15 overall, right? And if we look at the total clears again now, it's a little bit double over what it was at the end of the second reset, which was about 2 weeks ago now. Still considerably more clears for Alliance though. But I think Nax certainly has strengths aside from just being numerically more difficult or perhaps being a bit more atmospheric. The raid is so long that there's this idea that we need to keep world buffs for certain bosses, which ups the ante a little bit more. Patchwork can mow down your raid without them, skipping the dance on Hyga makes the fight infinitely easier, even having some buffs rolling for Lotheb can shave off a potential repot for some classes. And to just touch on the actual difficulty of it, sure, it's no mythic raiding. What Limit did a while ago on Side Denafrius does not in any way match up to Kel'Thuzad, but it's not just the case you pop consumables, bring along world buffs, and the bosses just fall over for you. There are few mechanics per boss, but if you get them wrong, things can spiral out of control very quickly. Mind control breaks on Vesuvius, better hope he's not about to use his shout. If a hateful tank dies on Patchwork, how fast can you work out who's next in line without your warriors gradually just getting one shot one after the other? Wrong dance move on Hygan, you're gonna die. Wrong side on Thaddeus, very angry raid, and you're gonna die. Move too early or too slow or to the wrong side, or when Meteor is off cooldown or near other people when Holy Wrath is off cooldown on Four Horsemen for Zeliek, you're probably gonna do something very bad to yourself or your raid. You often hear your average trash pack in dungeons can have more mechanics than an entire raid boss in Classic, and that's very true, but at the end of the day, if one thing's one-shotting you and the second's taking off half your health, which one really matters more? Simple but impactful mechanics is how I'd put it, and I think it works well enough. The only other times we've really seen mechanics like this have been the Shadow Flame from Drakes and Blackwing Lair, which I never really particularly liked. It just felt like half a second of over aggro equals a wipe, which was not too fun in my opinion. Or the Cthulhu Beam, which I'm pretty sure if you look at any WoW videos or just the subreddit or on the internet in general, you've seen more than one raid. Maybe you've been in that raid, just casually walk in front of the door and give you a reminder that yes, it will change your whole raid. And looking forwards from Naxxramas to the Burning Crusade, early fights, especially like Magtheridon's Lair and Gruul's Lair, were tuned to be successors in difficulty from Naxxramas, which basically means they're not going to be very easy for the average guild. Now, the downsizing of your raid from 40 to 25 may cut away a lot of players who have been receiving a nice free carry for a while, as well as I'm very much hoping us no longer needing destacking consumables or world buffs once the expansion's out, but then again, it may just prove more of a challenge than expected, which remains to be seen. I'm hoping that is the case though. I think it'd be more interesting. You can always nerf things down the line, but if you release them easy, well, people are going to see the easy version and then said I've seen it. So, Phase 6, was it any good though? The open world stuff was a bit, you know, whatever, to be honest for me personally. Naxxramas though, Nax has been amazing. I wish Classic looked like this from the start, I really do. It's not just the possibility that you can wipe that makes it entertaining or more fun in general. In fact, I think wiping can be pretty tedious at times, especially when you put so much time into world buffs or consumables, but just the added level of challenge, anticipation and preparation that you should bring in advance really does make it more interesting. And for a lot of guilds, this will be the first time they've actually seen progression since they've come back to the game, which may be the first time in many a year. And for that, I'd say Phase 6 has been really good. There's a full review of Classic to come, of course, which I'm well in the works at the moment. That is going to be a big old video, so look forward to that sometime soon-ish TM. As always, thanks all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you on the next one very soon. If you like what you see, do give the video a like and subscribe, as there will be plenty more to come. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.